Erling Haaland is back for game week 23, but with Julian Alvarez scoring a brace and Haaland only playing 20 minutes, is he really essential for the weekend? I'm going to discuss that in this video alongside my game week 23 transfer plans and of course all of the other major hot topics. So as always, if you can drop a like on the video, it is massively appreciated. Aim for 300. I know you legends can do that. And if you want to stick around for the rest of the season, make sure you do smash that subscribe button. So enough waffling. Let's get into today's video. So first up, a quick recap on how game week 22 is going for my team, and I'd rather go quickly over this section because it has been an absolute disaster right now. Those that own Julian Alvarez, Richarlison, you've had an amazing game week and I applaud you. Unfortunately, I don't own either of those. I ended up bringing in a certain Erling Haaland in game week 22 to replace Mabama. I felt like 20 minutes of Erling Haaland was enough to get the job done, knowing that I'm going to want him long term. But unfortunately, the rest of my players decided not to step up this game week, and I'm looking at a potential big red arrow. Now, of course, we are still waiting for a few more games in game week 22. And importantly, I do have Areola to play at home against Bournemouth. I basically need a penalty save, a goal and an assist to save my game week. So I'm pretty confident of that. And of course, Solanke away against the goalkeeper that I have in my team. So I cannot have one do well without the other. So basically, I am doomed this game week. I'm praying that maybe either Areola picks up a 15-pointer or Dominic Solanke bags a hat-trick. Either one, I need it to happen. So 37 points so far, as I mentioned. If you didn't own Julian Alvarez and you didn't own somebody like a Richarlison, it probably was quite a bad game week. So I'm looking at a big red arrow, but no need to panic. When you have bad game weeks, it's all about how you bounce back. And I'm planning on bouncing back very, very well. So let's get into the rest of the hot topics going into game week 23. We have so much to talk about. But as you already know, I am an Erling Haaland owner, but I am going to talk about whether you should be buying him for your teams. So I thought it'd be really important to bring up 8 things that we noticed from game week 22. Yes, a couple of these are really obvious, but others I really want to make sure that you do know about going forward, as it could be a player that we need to consider or an implication that is going to impact certain decisions later down the line. So first up, Erling Haaland's back, 20 minutes at the end against Burnley. But does that mean that he's essential for game week 23? I'm going to dedicate a section to this video solely on Erling Haaland, but we do need to note that the fixture is on Monday, so plenty of rest time for all of the Man City players until that game away against Brentford, who conceded 3 goals against Spurs. Haaland's back, but with Julian Alvarez bagging a brace and a 0.7 XG against Burnley, I don't think Alvarez is going to leave this team quietly. I do think that he is going to be rotating with Erling Haaland. It does put the big question mark of whether you should be selling Julian Alvarez for Erling Haaland, but again, I will be discussing in detail on that section in the next few slides, so make sure you do stick around for that. Number 3, Tony with the highest XG, which was really surprising at 1.49. He missed that real big opportunity when it was at 2-1, dragging it wide. But he is a double game week 25 option and also plays in game week 26, and we expect to play in game week 29. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that we need to bring in Tony as of right now. They do have Man City this weekend, but I just feel like with Ivan Tony, he's one of the few forwards that I fancy to score against any opposition, whether it be home or an away game. And we know he has got the bit between his teeth right now coming back from the ban. So I think Ivan Toney is an amazing option that we all need to consider for our teams. And he's actually somebody that I'm maybe looking as a Dominic Solanke replacement in a couple of game weeks' time. So we need to have Ivan Toney on the radar. Number 4, Darwin Núñez. I just need to really empathise with those that own Darwin Núñez. I don't, so I was delighted to see this, but I would be so frustrated. 11 shots, 1 missed penalty, 1 assist, and a 1.99 expected goal involvement. Honestly, Darwin Núñez could have walked away with a hat-trick and 2 assists and nobody would have batted an eyelid based on the performance. It is just a typical Darwin Núñez performance. Do not be frustrated with him. These numbers are a good thing. Keep him in because the double game week 25 that may get announced, we will come on to that, you're going to want him in your team and for game week 24 at home against Burnley. So be patient with him. I've had him before in the past. This is going to happen, but that big haul is going to come around the corner, I promise you. Number 5, Adebayo of Luton, who is a forward, you may not have heard of him. Only 4.8 million, bagged a hat-trick against Brighton. And importantly, Luton double in game week 25. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that we all need to buy Adebayo. Remember, he will blank in game week 26. But if you're looking for a bit of an enabler, I think this is maybe the route to go for. Luton have tricky fixtures, but whenever they're at home, they put up a tough competition for any team in the league. And I do think at 4.8 million, he is just a good option for double game week 25 if you want to go there. But I know a lot of managers are maybe looking for a 3 forward strategy, and then he might not accommodate that position. Number 5, Nkunku back. Played 45 minutes. Chelsea were basically looking for a hero in that second half. He did step up, but unfortunately the rest of the Chelsea team are absolutely woeful. Now, I'm not sitting here saying go for Nkunku because they blank in game week 26 and they don't double. But from game week 27 onwards, the Chelsea fixtures are fantastic. And I do think Nkunku could be a brilliant differential for your FPL teams, especially if Pochettino was to get the sack between now and then. But we don't look at Nkunku until after the blank game week 26. Number 7. Double game week 25 still hasn't been announced for Liverpool. Now, a lot of FPL managers bought in Diogo Jota, Darwin Núñez in game week 22 to pre-plan for the announcement, but it still hasn't happened. Now, a lot of good people out there have predicted this, and I do back them, but we need to remember the logistics of organising a match day takes a lot, and you can't be doing it a week before the potential fixture. So I think the general consensus is this: if we don't get any news before the end of this week, double game week 25 for Liverpool is basically off the table. So I would just tread carefully. I still think Liverpool are good options, but with them blanking in game week 26, if they don't get the double in game week 25, I don't think they're as essential as what we once thought they were. Last up, Maddison returned. Similar to Nkunku, Maddison, such an important player for his team, is back. 0.42 XG, 0.19 expected assists. He could be a fantastic Richarlison alternative if you haven't got Richarlison in your team. If you have Richarlison, you keep him 100% playing as the number 9. And I'm really interested to see once Son returns from the Asian Cup, how this team gels, because Maddison may be the one to go for if Son goes off on the left flank again. I don't think he's as good of an option, whereas Maddison remains involved in everything good that they do, and we know his minutes are really solid in this team, whereas Richarlison does have the tendency to come off early. So those are the 8 things you may have missed. Let me know if there's any more in the comment section. Next up, we got to look at these fixtures coming up. As always, when you are making transfers or pre-planning, we have to take a look at the longer term perspective to see what we are dealing with. And thankfully for us, Ben Crellin is our hero. Make sure you do check him out on Twitter. You probably know about him already. This is his basically predicted fixtures for the foreseeable future. And the only reason why I want to bring this up, and it's going to be very brief, is the game week 25 column. Brentford and Man City, as we know already, are doubling 100% locked in. But it's the Liverpool-Luton double, which still hasn't been announced, that we do need to consider about. So if Liverpool gets announced the double, I think we have to steam into them because the game week 24 fixture is fantastic. And if you haven't watched them against Chelsea, Liverpool are just one of the few teams in this league that I think we can always fancy to score 2 or 3 goals against any opposition. Now, I know game week 23 isn't the greatest entry point away against Arsenal, and I do think avoiding Liverpool transfers this week is actually quite a wise move. Roll in that transfer if you can, and then going into game week 24, we will then have concrete evidence whether they are going to be doubling in 25. If that's the case, and you rolled your free transfer, you could potentially then do Jota and Darwin Núñez into your teams. But I would tread carefully right now just because that double hasn't been announced. Because if it doesn't, you've then got 3 Liverpool potentially with only the Brentford away game, which I don't think is easy. And then they blank in game week 26 and then potentially blank in game week 29, which you can see on the fixture ticker here. So just be careful with Liverpool. If it gets announced though, I think we do steam in. Apart from that, nothing's really changed right now. We know blank game week 29 could be massive with these FA Cup fixtures, but we're not really going to get any of that information until game week 27. My thought right now in terms of chips is this. I think we avoid using the free hit in game week 25 and game week 26. If Erling Haaland returns to the Man City team and gets consistent game time, I think triple captain on game week 25 is a solid move. I don't really see many better times. And with Man City having 2 home games, I think that's enough for me to justify pulling it on Erling Haaland. Now, free hit game week 29 is going to be very, very popular. But looking at the fixtures that are definitely happening, Brentford away against Burnley. I think I'm going to want Ivan Toney prior to this, so he will already be in my team. And then I look at Burnley and Fulham, not really appealing teams, but if you have a Charlie Taylor, you may be able to navigate that game week. And then, of course, we do have Tottenham with a guaranteed fixture away against Fulham. Those with Pedro Porro like myself, and maybe an investment in the likes of Son or Maddison come game week 27. I think game week 29 is interesting. I think we can navigate it without a free hit. But if we were to see some of the other teams have games, then I think a free hit becomes even more likely because you can really double down on some of the great players. So for me right now, I'm planning on actually avoiding using a free hit over all of this schedule, just trying to get 8 players out in game week 29, the ones that I really want to own, and just accepting that the players like Fulham and maybe even a Burnley player that I'm not going to own that would be in free hitters, I can live without. So that's the plan. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I just need that Liverpool double announcement. On the topic of Liverpool, we've got to talk about Mo Salah because a lot of people are going mental right now. I'm going to pop up a picture that Mo Salah put up on Instagram yesterday, I believe, and it's got all of the internet going crazy, thinking that he's going to be returning for game week 23 or game week 24. Now, I just want to highlight, you can see him running on grass in trainers. This is usually an indication that a player is slowly getting back involved with his individual training. Hence the photo. He isn't even involved in the team. I do not need to panic you. He will not be back for game week 23 or game week 24. And you can see that with the quotes here from Klopp. Mo is not ready for this game, which was the Chelsea game. Not ready for the next game, which was the Arsenal game. And he put basically a long pause and then not. He's injured. So my assumption is this. Game week 23 is out. I'll be astonished if he is back for game week 24 and they could even give him a little bit of slow integration back into the team, similar to what we saw of Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, of course, if the double doesn't get announced for game week 25, I'd argue that Mo Salah is not even needed until game week 27. And some may argue game week 30. The reason being is this. If they blank in game week 26, they have Forest away in game week 27, which is really appealing. They have Man City in game week 28, but then they'll blank in game week 29, most likely. So do you really want to buy Mo Salah in game week 25, for example, to then blank, play 2 games, and then blank once again? I think the answer is no. I'd rather just go without him and know that I want him from game week 30 and onwards. So my thought process is this. If you own Mo Salah, I think you sell him. You start to spread the cash, maybe get an opportunity to bring in Erling Haaland, and then we look to bring in Mo Salah around game week 30, unless the double in 25 gets announced. And if that is the case and he's fully fit, then maybe we could bring him in for a 1-week punt, but I don't think it is a desperate buy with the news that we've had from Klopp. So the other major hot topic going into game week 23, of course, is do you buy Erling Haaland? Now, of course, I already bought him for game week 22. Yes, I am a little bit smug, but I'm also not because I got a 1-pointer and I was expecting way more against Burnley with the 20 minutes that he had on the field, but it is what it is. I could have brought in Kevin De Bruyne, but then I would have sold Saka. So look, enough of me. Let's talk about you guys, because I do imagine quite a lot of you are in the situation where you are reveling in the Julian Alvarez monster haul in game week 22, but have a real big decision about whether to sell Julian Alvarez for Erling Haaland. And looking at the transfer analytics, it does look like a lot of managers are already doing that. Haaland, one of the most bought players going into game week 23, and I wouldn't be surprised if his price goes up again tonight to 14.1 million. Maybe that blocks some managers out, so do be keeping an eye on the price changes. My advice, check out Fancy Football Fix, one of the best around. So taking a few points here. When is Haaland back for Man City? Well, he came off the bench in game week 22 for those 20 minutes, and I do expect him once again to be in the squad for game week 23. Now, will he start in game week 23? Well, unfortunately, that is just an impossible one to answer. With the Alvarez brace and him doing well in that game, yes, it is a favourable fixture at home against Burnley, but I don't know if Alvarez just suddenly comes straight out of the team. I do think Pep is one of those managers that really likes rhythm with his sides, and I think he's going to look at it and think, do I really need to change this team up right now? It's functioning well, and what an amazing option he does have with Erling Haaland coming into the team for maybe the last half an hour. So I would think Alvarez starts once again, but it is all assumption right now. And what I done in game week 22, I didn't have Alvarez, was I thought to myself, do I want Haaland long term? Yes. Could he hurt me in 30 minutes to be on the field? Yes. Just get it done. My one advice is this. If you keep money in the bank constantly for the day that you want to buy Erling Haaland, you're kind of just waiting another week to kind of utilise and optimise your squad. I wanted to get it done early to understand, I've got Haaland in now, what can I do with the rest of my team? Otherwise, I think you're just going to each week look at it and think, maybe I buy Haaland. Do I get him now? Do I get him now? I think game week 23 isn't an essential game week because of the uncertainty of whether he starts. I do think game week 24 onwards, he is essential. So maybe rolling the transfer this week, if you're a Julian Alvarez owner, is the way to go. And then in game week 24, with their home fixture against Everton, selling Julian Alvarez for Erling Haaland and accepting that you've then got Haaland for the rest of the season. That would be my advice if you are a Julian Alvarez owner. Now, the big question is, are we going to get any team leaks before the game week 23 deadline? And the short answer is no. I would be astonished. And the reason being is the game week 23 deadline is Saturday morning and Man City play on Monday. So we're going to get nothing, absolutely nothing whether Haaland is going to be available. So to kind of go through it, and I want to put up the fixtures right now because this might help influence some of the decisions that you guys are going for. We have Monday away against Brentford. 5 days later, they are at home against Everton. And as I said, that feels like the opportunity where Haaland is going to get his first major start for Man City. Then 3 days later, they have the Copenhagen away game. Again, I don't know whether Haaland is going to be playing in that, but surely he will need to get a start before that game to get him up to full match fitness, one would assume. 4 days later, they have a home game against Chelsea. And then 3 days later, they have the home game against Brentford, followed by the away game against Bournemouth. So it's quite a lot of fixtures coming up. And I do think he's going to take the opportunity to use both options available to him in Alvarez and Julian Alvarez and Erling Haaland. So my thought process is this. If you have Haaland right now, you probably put the captaincy on him for game week 23 and just pray that he starts, because if he does start against this Brentford team who conceded 3 goals against Spurs, it could be an amazing day at the office. If you have Julian Alvarez, I personally would be inclined to keep him for one more game week and then do the transfer to Erling Haaland in game week 24 at home against Everton, unless we get some news that maybe he is then benched for that game. That's my thought process. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. For me, I am praying that Haaland gets his first start in game week 23. So last up, before I go into my game week 23 team and transfer plans, I wanted to look at the top transfers going into this weekend because I felt it was a good opportunity to give a bit of an overarching feeling on all of them, because of course these are the players at the end of the day everybody is buying. So first up, Erling Haaland. We've already spoke about him, but he is the most bought player going into the weekend, and I wouldn't be surprised if his price goes up tonight. Now, I've made the point here, I would not be selling Julian Alvarez for Erling Haaland if it requires a points hit. And I've already stated, I actually would hold off on making that transfer until game week 24. Now, looking at the underlying kind of transfers, a lot of people have done Alvarez to Haaland. Basically, every transfer out of Alvarez has gone to Erling Haaland. So I feel a lot of people have looked at it and thought, that's a parting gift from Alvarez. Time to jump on the Erling Haaland train. For me, if it requires a hit, absolutely not. I get it if you want to do it if it's a free transfer, but for me, I think it's a great opportunity just to roll the transfer and do it in game week 24 ahead of that double in 25. Next up, Kevin De Bruyne being the second most bought player once again going into game week 23, and he's an amazing option. His price is going to continue to go up. But his numbers, 0.08 XG against Burnley, 0.27 expected assists. This right here is going to be common for Kevin De Bruyne between now and the end of the season. He's never been a goal scorer in this Man City team. He's had his purple patches where he's scored or maybe even got a 3 or 4 goal haul. But he isn't really in and amongst it generally. But we always see his chance creation numbers being through the roof. And when I compare him to all of the other options available, Salah, who is 3 million more expensive, it is worth noting. Son, who is cheaper. Other options. I don't know personally if Kevin De Bruyne is absolutely essential at 10.6 million. Just because he never has the high goal scoring numbers, I think we can maybe allocate our money elsewhere and just have a Haaland as our goal scoring Man City player longer term, alongside maybe somebody like a Phil Foden, for example, in our team. So I don't think Kevin De Bruyne is essential, but I get it if managers want to go there. Gordon, likely to play as a forward. You can see he's the 4th most bought player going into game week 23. I don't know if this is a good or bad thing. I don't really like Gordon playing as a forward in this Newcastle team, but the injuries to Wilson and Isak, I think they have nobody else who can really play there. I prefer Gordon playing off the left. So while others are buying him, and I already own him, I don't actually think this is great news for Gordon. I wouldn't necessarily be desperate to buy him right now in our teams. Now, looking at the other transfers in for Game Week 23, you can see Diego Jota scoring again in Game Week 22 and an amazing option. But again, I just want to reiterate it. We haven't had the double Game Week 25 announced for Liverpool yet. And until we get that news, I don't think he's a desperate transfer. A really tricky away game against Arsenal in Game Week 23. I don't think that's the great entry point for Liverpool. For me, once again, I think rolling the transfer is maybe more beneficial, giving us time to see if the Liverpool double gets announced, knowing then for Game Week 24 at home against Burnley, you can go in on these Liverpool assets or not, because double Game Week 25 may be the difference between you having triple Liverpool and maybe only one or two assets because they blank in Game Week 26. Now, looking over to the transfers out section, we've already discussed Halvarez, so I'm going to leave that. João Pedro, Brighton losing 4-0. I always fancy Brighton to score goals. I think that was just a bad game and day at the office for them, but Pedro out probably does make sense for a lot of managers to accommodate maybe an Erling Haaland if they're upgrading their teams. We spoke about Salah. I think we do sell him, use the money to bring in Haaland or another premium asset. And Isak with the injury, I think that is an obvious sell. The one that's really interesting is Phil Foden. Now, I am a Phil Foden owner right now. I bought him last game week. I captained him in game week 22. But I actually am a little bit worried about Phil Foden going forward. I'm looking at the attacking options that Man City have available. And if the assumption is that Erling Haaland will eventually get his place back in the middle, I've seen quotes from Pep Guardiola suggest that Kevin De Bruyne and Phil Foden can't play with one another in a team. And that makes me think that Phil Foden is a big rotation risk down the line. We could see him playing out on the right, which we did see in game week 22 against Burnley. And I think that really diminishes him as an FPL option. And also, if he does play in central areas, I think his minutes are a big risk with Alvarez, De Bruyne, all being options that can rotate with him. So as of right now, I would not be buying Phil Foden, and I think I regret buying him on reflection. Would I be selling him? No, I don't think it is a desperate sell, especially if we're doing Foden up into Kevin De Bruyne. I just don't think that is a major upgrade that I would like to do for 2.5 million more. So I would tread carefully with Foden. I don't think he's a sell, but I definitely wouldn't buy him either. Okay, so looking ahead to game week 23, my team and transfer plans. This is how the team is currently looking without any transfers made. And a reminder, I have 3.4 million in the bank and one free transfer. And I am, some would say, ahead of the curve bringing in Erling Haaland because I've done that already in game week 22. So I can start to look ahead a little bit with my team, even though game week 22 has been massively negatively affected with that transfer. It is what it is. So looking at my team in reflection right now, the goalkeepers I'm happy with. Dubravka at home against Luton. No need to worry about the goalkeepers. Looking at the defenders, I think this is a transfer that definitely needs to be made either this game week or later down the line. Now, Trent is a little bit of a worry because Conor Bradley plays so fantastic against Chelsea. Could Klopp keep Bradley in once again? Potentially. I'm a little bit worried about Trent getting guaranteed game time, even though in the most likely world he does come in because it's such a big game against Arsenal. It's a lot of money at 8.5 million to have question marks over him. So I am going to look at the press conferences going into the weekend, but it would have to take a lot for me to sell Trent, especially if we do get the double game week 25 announcement. But I'm a little bit worried about Trent's game time. So he's going to stay in. He's not a transfer out, but one to monitor. Gabriel at home against Liverpool, not ideal, but you can see on my bench that I do have Saliba as well. And of the two, I'd rather have Gabriel. So he is in the team, but I have got eyes on a maybe Saliba transfer out at some point. Porro away against Everton, a disappointing day. I always expect Spurs to concede chances, and they did against Brentford. Do I expect a clean sheet against Everton? Probably not, but Porro is a very difficult player to sell right now with the great fixtures that Spurs have coming up. Maybe in the blank game week 26, I look to move him on, but for now, not a problem. Moving into midfield, Phil Foden, as I mentioned, for me is you do not buy him, but I don't think you sell him right now. But I am a little bit worried about his minutes. I'm hoping that maybe he's just a little bit more fit than Kevin De Bruyne, and he plays this weekend and De Bruyne maybe gets a little bit of managed minutes. That is the hope anyway. So Foden stays in the team, but I'm not confident to put anything like a captain or a vice captaincy. Cole Palmer, unlucky not to get 2 penalties against Liverpool last night, but Chelsea are horrendous, it is worth noting. I think Cole Palmer remains in that Chelsea team. I'll be astonished if he gets taken out, and we know that what he's about. He's an amazing value. At home against Wolves, no problems whatsoever, and the same applies to Bukayo Saka. I was looking to maybe sell him for Kevin De Bruyne. I'm really glad I held on to him, because when we're looking at players who are consistent, Bukayo Saka ticks that box, and I don't want to be selling players who play for top teams with guaranteed minutes, and Saka is one of those. Yes, he's a home against Liverpool, but I think it's absolutely fine. Liverpool aren't necessarily watertight defensively. And Anthony Gordon, we discussed this. I actually don't like him if he is playing as a forward with Isak and Wilson being out, but I'm not going to be selling him at home against Luton. So he is in the team, absolutely locked in. And looking at the front three, Haaland away against Brentford with currently the captaincy. I am going to do that just because I think it is the highest upside move, but I am going to keep an eye on maybe any sort of comments from Pep potentially to suggest he could be a rotation risk. If he's benched, I wouldn't be surprised at all, but I think I've got to take the risk. Watkins away against Sheffield United, perfectly fine fixture. Villa need to bounce back. And Dominic Solanke at home against Nottingham Forest. We're currently the vice-captain, but of course we do need to monitor the game tonight to see if any injuries do get picked up. So you've probably noticed in the tone of my voice and the way that I'm looking at my team, I'm pretty content with how the team is looking. Would I like another defender in the side who has a favourable fixture? Yes, the answer would be maybe I could have brought in maybe an Estupiñán, for example. But looking at the team, can I get by this week and roll my free transfer? And I think the answer is yes. I think I need to wait one more week to get an understanding of what direction I need to take my team. With game week 24, Liverpool at home, I need an attacking option. But with them playing away against Arsenal this week, I just don't think the entry point is correct. And Man City defensively are really hard to pinpoint with the benching of Kyle Walker and the other options not being that desirable. So for me, rolling the transfer makes a lot of sense. Giving myself 2 free transfers of game week 24 to take my team in whatever direction it needs to go to off the back of the double game week 25 announcement or not for Liverpool. So that's the plan. Captaincy on Erling Haaland. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll be really interested to know what your plans are for game week 23. Yes, guys, okay, that is going to wrap up today's Game Week 23 video. I really hope it provided some value. It's a quick turnaround from the Game Week 22 deadline to Game Week 23. So please do let me know in the comment section if there are anything I've missed. I will make sure I do answer it between now and the end of the day. Thank you so much again for tuning in. If you can drop a like, it's massively appreciated. If you can subscribe to the channel, that's even more appreciated. And make sure you do stick around because we have another video dropping tomorrow with my official team reveal. See you guys soon. Have an amazing day. Take care. Cheers.